You are listening to the Doc Malik podcast. This show is 100% independent and fully funded by listeners like yourself. So, if you wish to support Ahmed in all that he is doing, then please subscribe to his channel on Spotify or his Substack. Or simply buy him a coffee with a one-off donation, links to which can be found at docmalik.com. Now, let's get on with the show.
If you don't already know, I'm now offering consultations. Now, I've got 25 years of experience as a medical doctor and a surgeon, working both in the public and the private healthcare, or should I say sick care system. Now, I'm not offering a consultation as a doctor, your doctor, as a treating, diagnosing doctor. No, I'm acting as a health advocate to help you understand your diagnosis, your condition, and the sick care system and how to navigate it. So if you feel stuck in the system, you've got a diagnosis you can't make sense of or are questioning, you want to spend time with someone who's going to talk to you for more than just 5 minutes, if you want to leave a consultation with answers rather than more questions, if you want to understand how to interpret your scans, your blood panels, your tests, if you just simply want a second opinion, or you want to know how to mitigate or minimize your risks for an operation, or whether even the operation is necessary, simply maybe you want to explore other options, to book a consultation with me, visit my website, docmalik.com/consultations. And on the booking page, you can see what some people have already written about me and left some reviews, so you know what to expect. Okay, folks, much love. Let's get back into the show. No, I mean, honestly, it's good to see you're very fit and trim. You're looking healthy, but I do miss your beard. You looked good with the beard.
I'll grow it back in the fall. My younger son said, "Dad, I forget what you look like without the beard. I don't recognize you." I said, "What?" So he encouraged me. And one Sunday morning, I got up and I had my clippers to trim my beard. And I just said, well, okay. And then I realized. So how long?
Yeah, it's gone.
I know. And now I have to buy razors again. And I have to shave at least every other day. What a pain. The beard is so much easier. And you just get some clippers every few days. Bzz, 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 done. Hey.
How long did you have the beard for?
Oh, I had it for several years.
Do you not find that now without the beard you feel naked?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. My younger son says, "Dad, you look younger." I said, "I'm not trying to look younger. I'm trying to look mature and esteemed. Hence the beard." And he says, "Just can you leave it off for the summer?" And I said, "Okay, just the summer, and then I'll grow it back for the fall."
Yeah, well, I think my beard's staying. I like it, and the wife likes it. So hey, and the kids like it. The kids
Very
are like,
good.
"Dad, don't ever shave it off. You just look like a brown bowling ball otherwise, or a chocolate ball."
I saw a wonderful meme. It was a short video. It was advertising a fictitious company, and the company was called From Bald to Badass. And they bring in guys to this office. They're doing a consultation, and it's men, who just have a little bit of hair left here. They're bald everywhere else, but they have no beard. And the doctor's pointing. "You see this hair here on your temple? We're going to put it here." And then they shave off all the hair here and tell the guy to grow a goatee. And then the case studies, the interviews. I just feel much more confident, and women are more attracted to me now because I am a badass. All they did was they took the hair from here and made me grow hair here, and it was true. Just the I said, "Oh, that's pretty good joke, a skit somebody came up with. Bald to badass."
Bald to badass, dude. It's hell yeah. It's funny. I had someone comment on my Instagram recently and go, "Oh, you're just a bald Muslim guy. Like, what do you know?" I'm like, well, and on their profile it was like kind, loving, community, and I'm like, how's that kind and loving? Using the baldness as a derogatory term and Muslim as a derogatory term. Like, first of all, I'm not a Muslim, and two, I love being bald. It's like, if there's one thing I could go back in time, I would have shaved it off a lot earlier. But it's funny, I love the wokey left people are sometimes the most hateful. The ones on their banners and profiles that talk about love and kindness are the ones that are most vicious online. Kind of funny.
No, I see that too. I don't spend a lot of time online. I don't have any real social media profiles of my own, and I don't take time to read stuff. And I'm very diligent about regulating what the older son sees. So he has no social media either. And they're homeschooled. Both boys are homeschooled, but the older one has a phone now. We really limit it. So he's got limited friends that he can talk to or text. We limit the time. And even in the little bit of time that he spends texting, kids, multiple ones in one thread, and he's 14, the way they just constantly insult and berate each other, they all just build up this wall. And he's just not that way. He says, why do people act like this, Dad? I said, I don't know. They go to regular school. And in regular school, they'll say, oh, toughen up. You have to have a thick skin. Yes, and that's true. But I said, but you're chatting with these people on your own text threads. Are they your friends? Yeah, they're my friends. I said, to have a friend, you have to be a friend. And yes, you have to have that thick skin for the rest of the world. And I would encourage you at 14, especially, hey, please control your emotions. Because if somebody wants to just pick on you and say, well, you're just this kid and you don't know anything and I don't know, whatever. I said, that's their problem. That's their own internal problem, and they're giving it to you as a gift. Hey, do you want this? But what if you refuse it? No, you can keep that. All that nastiness, all that rancor, animosity, that's for you. You can keep it. I don't want it. So I encourage him to not engage, but then he checks his text threads because after 9 p.m. Pacific, it's shut off. No, there's no more texting. He's like, and I said, just look at what is said amongst these others. And it's a lot of girls because both boys are into dance. I think they'll both be excellent cavaliers. And my wife has encouraged that. She said, hey, just wait. You see these kids their dads want them to get football scholarships. And after the concussions, and they're very unlikely to get it, American football. But if they're even a mediocre danseur or cavalier, there's lots of opportunities for full scholarships. And they're doing very well. We all train martial arts. The three boys and I still train martial arts. Okay, if anybody ever makes fun of you for being a twinkle toes, you can just think to yourself and not demonstrate it, but you can just think, I'm more than a twinkle toes, so you can keep that. But if you don't engage, then it's not theirs. But how much of that rancor, animosity, that just nastiness is in his text threads and is on social media? It's rampant. And you're right. It is the left. And why do they do it? So much for peace and love? It's like, well, it's peace and love as long as you think my way. You think, yeah. But if you don't think my way, I'm going to attack. I get to attack you because I don't want to hear anything that disrupts the way I see the world. No. Don't. I was just having a discussion with somebody yesterday about the oddest thing that liberals really cling to: solar and wind power. It's all bullshit. It's such bullshit. When you look up and read a little bit about facts, this stuff is garbage. And living here in Las Vegas, Nevada, we have a power plant that was criticized. It's in 45 minutes away from Las Vegas called Ivanpah, Nevada. And it wasn't solar panels, it was a bunch of mirrors. Mirrors on the ground that reflect sunlight to two different towers to heat a molten salt and water solution. So the salt and water would hold heat, they'd pump it into the ground, and then that heat was supposedly enough to last each day's worth of sun to continue heating water to drive steam turbines. Huge failure. They're closing the plant. Why? Because they had to use natural gas to supplement the heat because the mirrors just weren't enough. And the mirrors lose efficiency dramatically because they just get dirty. So, it doesn't make any sense to do that. The United States is the Saudi Arabia of coal. Yes, you have to. We have so much coal, it's ridiculous, and it's a long-standing thing. I'm from Pennsylvania, and lots of coal mines and steel mills that we used to have, but the coal was very high sulfur coal, and this is what the Canadians complained about. Say, well, shit, you're burning your coal in your coal stacks. And it's kicking a bunch of sulfur in the air, and then the sulfur combines with water, and it's raining down on us as H2SO4, as sulfuric acid. It's acid rain. Okay. Well, then the EPA, one of the few things they did, Environmental Protection Agency, said, well, why don't you put scrubbers on the stacks, just like we use catalytic converters in cars, and why don't we suck all that sulfur out? Well, then it didn't matter how much sulfur was in the coal What mattered was how much sulfur was coming out of the stacks. But there's been a war against American, energy reliance for a long time. But I'll tell you this, because I love to bring it up and point it out, because these industries that left my little small town south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, devastated the town, and then it just got flooded with drugs. It's just ridiculous. Coal mining, steel mills, glass factories, but shipping these industries overseas. And the coal in particular was very corrupt. So it was actually during the Clinton administration. Al Gore said, "Oh, we have to save the environment. There's no more mining high sulfur coal." But we already had, the EPA said, "Look, coal-fired electric plants, you got 10 years to put in the scrubbers." Okay, we already had half of them in the United States, over half actually, converting to get the sulfur out of the coal, what's burnt. Well, you can only burn low sulfur coal. Okay, well then there's this place in Utah, neighboring state for me. It looks like the surface of Mars. This isn't a place you're going to go hiking or fishing or sit under trees, because there's no trees. It's nothing but jagged rocks and desert nothingness, right? Literally the surface of Mars. But Gore says, "This is so beautiful. We're going to declare this a national preserve, this huge swath of land in Utah. So no economic development can take place on that land," which happened to be the largest repository of low sulfur coal in the United States. The rest of our coal has pretty much high sulfur. However, in Indonesia, there were a couple coal mining companies, and in Indonesia, there's large deposits of low sulfur coal. So the companies, which were British and American and Dutch companies, they specialize in energy extraction, their stock went through the roof because the Clintons and the Gores disrupted the U.S. coal mining industry, favored. Now we have to import this coal from Indonesia because, well, it's low sulfur coal. We only want to burn low sulfur coal and import it. But their stock went through the roof. Just layers and layers of corruption. But hiding behind that are liberals that just say, well, solar and wind and solar and wind. So the stat I read yesterday was that by 2050, 50% of all landfill volume in the United States, 50% will be retired solar panels. They're not recyclable.
What?
50% of landfill volume by 2050 will be solar panels, retired solar panels. They last maybe 15 years, maybe 20, but they become more and more inefficient over time. The other thing that's unrecyclable are the aluminum blades from the wind turbines.
I know.
They can't recycle them, so you got to stick them somewhere. So great, we stick this toxic aluminum, which aluminum produces toxic byproducts when you manufacture it. So, okay, if we need it for certain things like aircraft or whatever, okay, that's fine. But why do we need these wind turbines that are inefficient? The turbines burn out over time. They produce low frequency that destroys or disrupts wildlife. It's basically a bird Cuisinart. Right, so God forbid you have birds that want to migrate somewhere and they're used to this migration pattern and they want to fly through all these blades. They can't fly through the blades, so you end up with all these dead birds, and it's just sad. What a thing. But you're right. Long segue from what we got to. Why is the left so hateful? And if you just want to bring facts, have you ever looked into this about wind and solar? They're so vindictive and vengeful. No, you must be one of those crazy MAGA Republicans, and you're a fascist. You can't fix that, man. You can't fix it.
You can't. You can't, dude. That was epic, rant. And more of those, please, more of those. I don't even know where to begin now. You've just stunned me into silence. But I'm with you on all of that. I mean, the thing is, over here it's got so ridiculous. So basically, the farmers now have got this massive inheritance tax that they can't pay. So when they die, the farm's going to have to get sold off. It won't be passed on to the children. And then they're going to build these massive solar panel farms, which they've already started, or just build lots of cheap housing on it. And you're driving and you just see these fields and fields of solar panels. And they spray it with pesticide and herbicide and get rid of all the weeds and the plants and everything. So it's just a desert underneath the solar panels. There's no life. There's no herbs. There's no butterflies. There's no insects. There's no rabbits. It's just dead. And then And then no one's kicking up a fuss on this. None of the environmentalists are like, "Oh my God, we're killing biodiversity, and the English nature countryside is being destroyed because of these solar panels." No, of course not, because they're all on board with the green agenda. And then our government's now officially come out with, chemtrails are real, and you know what? We're going to look at experiments to dim the sun. So hold on one second. You've just spent billions on subsidizing your crony capitalist buddies putting up these solar farms. And now you're going to dim the sun. Like, isn't that the opposite of what you want for solar energy? Like, how does that work? But we're the government and the country is being run by clowns and criminals, or criminal clowns. Do you know what I mean? Same way you are.
We've got the same. Our countries and several countries, they have the same things. They have captured politicians, rigged elections, a captured media framing one narrative, right? And you just have these. Do you swear on your show, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have dumbasses. Just complete
that's
imbeciles.
That's a mild swear word.
Yeah. It'll get worse, because I've read a couple articles. I think you've seen this too. People who swear are more intelligent and logical and insightful. I'm like, and they're also more trustworthy. I'm like, that's great, because people who never swear, I think they're deceitful motherfuckers. I just don't trust them at all. Because you got to work hard to not want to swear, especially in this day and age. And you're right. Of all the things that we talk, when we're just chatting personally, which is something that I greatly love, the few things that you touched on, and just what the left embraces. When my older son, sometimes that's just okay. He's 14. He's about to turn 15. When I tell him, you just finished cooking something in a cast iron skillet, and then you go over and you burn your hand. It's hot. Iron retains heat for a long time. If you actually do the thinking ahead of time, you'll realize, maybe I need to go get a hot mitt or something to grab that handle before I take it over to the sink to wash it, because it's easier to wash a cast iron skillet once it's when it's hot, right? And that's what I just say to all the left is, do the thinking, right? Solar panels. Let's dim the sun. Dumbass. And how about this? I want to save the environment, so solar panels. It's so stupid in Nevada, and there's a couple layers here. So one thing about the thinking, the reading, because when you read, you'll find people that are smart actually write things about the inefficiency and unrecyclability of solar panels, we know. The dependency on China to manufacture them, that's another thing that we know. But there's something called the heat island effect. So I live in a hot state. Nevada gets hot. Las Vegas, 110 degrees in the summer. So now you have sun beating down on these pure black solar panels. It concentrates so much heat just a little bit above the ground that it creates a fantastic collection of heat, the heat island effect, that otherwise would not be, because the ground is it black? No, the solar panels are black. So that causes, heat collection, heat radiation. What are you doing to the environment and the climate there? Let's just say all the animal species, and there are some that we have in the desert that you're going to disrupt, right? All the rodents that, the birds of prey will feed on, snakes, the prize desert tortoise, whatever. So you're disrupting the desert ecology, number one. Number two, this heat island effect, it is going to have an impact on weather patterns. So my question is, has anybody thought about this or studied it to see what it's going to do to, say, the Central Valley farmer in California, where those of us who live in Nevada, we get a lot of our food from the Central Valley farmer in California. Also, you're dependent on pollinators, right? How many pollinators are dying due to either solar or wind? And it's like, gosh, guys, if you could just do the thinking, nuclear power works. And it's incredibly efficient. Yeah, you have to deal with waste, but there's newer technology that doesn't have so much waste. It's not so bad, like a thorium reactor technology. But why are we messing with solar panel and wind that are so outrageously expensive? And what you said, politicians are bribed and coerced. They're stupid. And like the Clintons and Gores, how many politicians have made their money on solar companies and their stock, options that they get from advising and, directing U.S. or UK energy policy? And gosh, I know Nevada is very sunny. So Las Vegas is probably one of the top 3 cities in the country as far as the most number of sunny days. Dude, is it always sunny in the UK?
No.
Then what the hell are solar panels for? And now you're going to dim the sun where you don't get sun all the time.
No. Dude, it's
The thinking.
madness. And that Al Gore chap, I mean, according to him, the planet should have been, the ocean should have risen and flooded every square inch of land, a decade ago. I mean, that guy is such a crook and a criminal. And, did he not make money setting up carbon credits? And he sold fear. It was all fear porn, remember? Fear porn, climate change, blah, blah, blah. And he made some climate change movie or whatever. It's all garbage. But anyway, I mean, I've talked about the left a bit. I'm going to have a go at the right as well. I'm not left or right. I'm common sense wing. Unfortunately, there's very few in the common sense wing.
Mhm.
You're either in the left or the right, and whichever way you want to be manipulated. But on the right now, you've got people who've just lost the plot. They just trust their messiahs and their idols. They don't see the logic and the reason. They give weird reasons, like when I say, why is no one from the Trump administration spoken out against the mRNA vaccines? Why is it not halted? Why is there not a moratorium? Why has no one come out and said this is a bad idea? And it's like, no. I get trolled so badly. I get my own supporters tagging me and going, oh, I'm unsubscribing now. Stop being so hateful towards Donald Trump. I'm like, I'm not hateful, but these guys aren't our friends. Like, it's America first, as long as, there's no foreign aid unless it's to Israel. There's no wars abroad unless it's for Israel. America first, except, whatever, ... And it's like, just, guys, the conservative wing is also being captured. And it's almost like, they're almost like this woke right, if that makes sense. Like, if you criticize anything, they go, are you a Hamas supporter? Are you a terrorist sympathizer? And you're like, what? What are you guys talking about? I'm just calling out the nonsense that we're seeing. I just feel like everyone's just lost the plot almost. There's very few people with common sense.
I call it the blind right, right? Because if somebody asks me, say, are you left or right? Well, I'm going to say right because I'm not a whacked out liberal, but I'm not the blind right. And here's the blind right. The things that you listed are things that I constantly question, and I encourage anyone who considers themselves on the right, MAGA, whatever, say, oh, MAHA, right, make America healthy again. Let's go through the checklist right now. Do we have any names whatsoever on the Epstein list that we were promised? Zero. The empty set. Are the mRNA vaccines still on the market? They have not been pulled from the market. No. Has Fauci been arrested? No. And I pointed out yesterday to some friends the fraud that we call Rand Paul. Rand Paul is not his father, Ron Paul. And there were a lot of arguments going back and forth with Rand Paul putting Fauci in front of Congress and griping at him about whether or not it was lab leak and COVID and the vaccine's worth it. I mean, I think Rand is he's an ophthalmologist. And it's like, bro, you might not know infectious disease, but you're smart enough to realize the fact that a virus that has, a 0.4% infection fatality rate untreated, 0.4% infection fatality rate untreated, and you have this new technology that's never been tested in humans. So I think I did tell you when we met, I did 10 years of clinical research in the biotech industry. We had animal data on the mRNA vaccines, animal data. Why was there never FDA approval for human use? Because you have to meet 2 out of 2 criteria in animal studies. Show a benefit, don't cause harm, don't show harm. 3 species. Treated mice. Mice only lived 2 or 3 years. They were all dead within 3 months.
Wow.
Treated ferrets. Ferrets lived 13 years, all dead within 3 years. Treated chimpanzees. They lived 40 years. They were all dead within 5. All animals, all 3 species died of either embolic events, so they had clots, or severe respiratory illness. They only autopsied the chimpanzees. 100% of the chimpanzees had developed 1 or more solid tumor cancers.
Wow.
But let's jam this in the market. So where are the arrests? Now, there's some other things that go down the list that too. We still have the damned IRS. Now, we've just crested the 100-day mark. And I heard an analogy that I resonate with. So it's like, well, okay, I'm not the blind right. America gave an unequivocal mandate with its vote. So we're going to hold everybody in that administration to the fire. So if you're the smart right, you're going to say, okay, this shit better be coming. We better see arrests. We have to see exposure. Otherwise, there will be a massive revolt. And when that revolt will occur, I would think it would be sooner than our 2026 midterms. But then it's going to be like, forget it. The public's going to realize that our entire political operation is captured. Because what else do we still have? We still have the damned chemtrails. We still have all of that. So just pick those few things. It's like, okay, it's only been 100 days, but you better get to work. So don't be part of the blind right and say, no, it's all going to be okay. So I hope it's going to be okay because this is what we voted for. But you better join the voices that are saying, hey, you better not have tricked us. We want this and this and this. And I don't want to see tic-tac-toe above the skies and dumb liberals telling me, oh, it's just contrails. Okay, look up contrails from condensation. They typically dissipate after 90 to 120 seconds. A minute and a half to 2 minutes and they're gone. These things linger and they spread out over hours and become this smooth, wispy white cloud. Those aren't contrails. Those are not contrails. So wake up. And you're right. So hold feet to the fire because I don't want to be part of the blind right. Definitely not in the left. But we have so many institutions that are captured and politicians you think are on the right. So let me give the Rand Paul example I was ranting about yesterday.
Yeah.
So the Trump administration has deftly realized that, okay, trade is imbalanced with the United States. We're the largest consumer nation in the world. You want to sell stuff in the United States? Okay, great. We have too much consumerism. That's a social thing that we have to fix, number one. But let's just face it, we're the world's largest customer. And as we've pushed all of our manufacturing to other countries, Trump is encouraging reshoring because, like I said in the beginning of the episode, the tiny little town that I'm from, with the absence of manufacturing jobs, you had the infiltration of drugs. This parallels a rat study, okay? Rats that are given two choices of water to drink. Water with opiate in it or plain water. You stick the rats in a cage. Rats are just in a cage. They have the two sources of water. They'll hit the water with opiate in it all day long. But if they're in a cage, but a cage that has mazes and toys and things for the rats to play with to keep them engaged, do stuff, they drink the water. They don't drink the heroin shit. They don't drink the opiate shit. Well, I've been thinking about that because I just read it a week ago. I said, well, no wonder I moved away from my town for a number of reasons. I wasn't going to be a steel mill laborer, and then just so happened that 2 years after I graduated, moving out west to Las Vegas is where pharmacist wages were high. And I realized, hey, the West, I have a much better chance of getting into the drug industry. Wow, that's going to be a good place to go, until I realized how dirty it was, right? And I spent 12 years in the drug industry. But then making the trips back to my hometown once a year, then once every few years, you just see the degradation of the neighborhoods and kids that are just hanging out on porches and smoking whatever. And, children of friends of mine that I graduated high school with die of overdoses because it's just economic devastation. If we don't reshore manufacturing, which I believe tariffs will cause, you already have Audi saying, we're going to make a bunch of cars in the United States. Hyundai was smart. During the first Trump administration, they said, well, we kind of think this is coming. They already built a manufacturing plant. When Trump announced the tariffs, you have Japanese companies saying, hey, did you guys know? These cars are made in the United States. The Toyota Tundra is made in the United States, where it might be more American than some Ford vehicles that are manufactured in Mexico. So it's like, well, okay, that is a play that the executive gets to make. Trump decides the tariffs, and that's a deal maker. He's not a career politician. He knows. And how does he start out? He says something outrageous, and then countries flip out, and they come to the negotiating table, and something reasonable will be decided upon. And then you have Rand Paul, that traitor, who did not call for Fauci's arrest. Rand Paul and his wife, it's well known, their investment portfolio, like so many corrupt DC politicians, made money from the stock that went up in companies like Moderna and Pfizer during COVID, and who knows what else. COVID testing companies. Rand Paul made his money there. Rand Paul just co-sponsored legislation with a Democrat senator to strip Trump of the executive privilege of imposing tariffs on other nations and negotiating trade. And he wants to put it with Congress, which begins with C-O-N, by the way. I always emphasize that, Congress, because I think they're all convicts. And that's Rand Paul. And when you said about people who say, no, it's not true. MAGA, everything, all that is great. I'm really on the right. No, I'm not on the blind right, because here's a guy that is supposedly Republican, supposedly on the right, who has supposedly, I've consistently voted in support of Trump policies. Yeah, but dude, did you vote for it when it mattered? Did you vote for it when, like, your vote wouldn't have swayed the decision either way? Either, a policy was pushed forward or not pushed forward, and you weren't like a deciding vote. So it was convenient for you to lay down your vote and say, you see, I voted for this. I'm a Trump supporter. I support every one of his policies. Until you want to stab the guy in the back and stab American industry in the back that is suffering right now. There's a reason why during political campaigns you have commentators say, well, Trump spent a lot of time in the Rust Belt. Yeah, I know that Rust Belt from Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, where there's no more mining or steel production taking place anymore, and all of the equipment that was there is either gone and what's remaining is rusted or it's bulldozed over. Yeah, people tune into that. And if you're going to be a person who says, nah, I don't want those tariffs to have anything to do with reshoring American industry. No, I want to take that power away from the Trump and give it to Congress, which is bribed because they all have the same investment advisors, I'm imagining. Hey, Rand, you and your wife should invest in this. Look, this is what Pelosi invested in. Gosh, we're going to make you a lot of money. Hey, but when you're on those committees, just make sure you vote this particular way, okay? It'll be much better for your portfolio. It's so corrupt. It's like this analogy that I wanted to get to. I did grow up on a small farm, okay? And I didn't invent this analogy, but I resonated with it. I heard another guy commented on a podcast, and we raised beef a little bit on my farm, but mostly we had 200 head on my grandparents' farm, right? We had a few dairy cows. Dairy is a huge pain in the ass. Any dairy farmer will tell you dairy is a lot of work. Today, you got to milk the cows twice a day because you give them all kind of hormones. They produce 5 gallons of milk a day instead of 3, which is what they naturally produce, right? Even the Holsteins. So when we converted the milking barn and we were going to use it, say, well, we'll put hogs in here or something, right? Because selling bacon is going to be better than selling the milk because milk became so cheap. All the cows getting pumped with hormones dump so much milk on the market. So my cousins and me, I'm probably 10, and my cousins are like 14, 16 years old. They're older than me. It's like, okay, guys, you got to clean the floor. Well, what's on the floor? Cow shit, hay, dirt, and mud that had been trampled into the floor by these 1,200-pound animals for probably the last 20 years. You're not hosing that out, man. You're not getting a power washer. You have to get a pickaxe and shovel to chisel that shit out because it's so much garbage. It has been there for so long, so entrenched. And that was a beautiful analogy, not so beautiful, but a very accurate analogy to describe corrupt American politics as they are today. The corruption is so bad. It is so deep. It has been there for so long. And if you want to get anything done, like you want to repurpose your agencies, and you have all kinds of shit, literal shit, that you have to chisel out there. So that's the only, not necessarily a break. I'm not going to give MAGA a break. I'm going to say, look, I'm not blind MAGA. I'm not blind right. This is what we voted for. You knew it. This is the platform you run on, so you better deliver. Because how many times did Pam Bondi and Kash Patel say, we're going to have that Epstein list out next week? No, it's not there. It's not there. And, you probably have some speculation as to one of the reasons that's being held. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll come to that in a second. I'm just thinking about the parallels with you and me. Like, we live across the pond, the big gap. I think we're probably very similar in age. I was born and brought up in Glasgow. I don't know if you know, Glasgow was a very working class, blue collar town in Scotland. It was famous for its steelworks, its coal mines, and its shipping industry. At one point in the world, 1/5 of all ships sailing around the world had been made on the River Clyde in Glasgow. And my dad, when he came over from Pakistan, he was a welder in the shipyards in, Brown Shipyard. That's what he came and started doing. But I remember when I was 5, at school I did a poster competition about don't do drugs, and I won. I won the competition. That's what I remember. I remember a police constable giving me a certificate and book vouchers and all that kind of stuff. Kind of memory that sticks in your head. And I remember drawing some guy on the ground with needles all around him. That's what made me win the prize, because the industry in the late 70s was all falling apart. All the shipyards were closing down, the coal mines. And where I grew up in Drummoyne in Glasgow was rife with drugs. And I remember the teachers telling us, oh, if it's not alcohol, it's the heroin that will get you by the time you're in your early 40s. Like the average life expectancy for a white male in Govan, that area where I was from, was about 45. Dude, it's horrific. And even when I was a med student going around to these deprived areas, it was horrific. Alcohol, smoking, junk food, obesity, drugs. And it was sad. It was really sad seeing this town that had been, one of these massive producers, like, one of the big cities of the empire, just rotting away. I left Glasgow after my med school and a couple of years of basic surgical training, then moved down to London. Plan was to go back after 6 months, but 25 years later, I'm still down south. And I haven't been up for a few years now. But it's not the same. The city's changed. It's now service industry. It's very wokey, lefty. It's very LGBTQ plus XYZ, whatever. It's just all changed. It's quite sad. So a lot of the work was also outsourced. All the industries broken down. And I think the reason why, Robert, is that the corporations, the globalists, the bankers, they're not loyal to any country. They're loyal to themselves. And what happens is they just go and exploit and rape every country. And originally they used Britain and other countries and their empires to exploit resources abroad. But then at the same time, they're hollowing out the native country, if that makes sense. And then once they've done with it, they move on like parasites to the next host, and they'll pump it up and then use it and its army and its people to conquer other people, extract wealth. And then once that's coming to an end and they hollow out that country as well, then they jump up and move along to another country. And it's like, that's what these people are. They're parasites. And there is no love of their country. And the problem is, there is this agenda like of stripping away sovereignty and pride in your country, pride in your local community, valuing traditions, local traditions, and just creating this vanilla beige global culture that's not grounded in anything, and there's no loyalty to anything. It's kind of sad. So it's just funny. The parallels are so similar where you are in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, and whatever, and me in Scotland. You know what I mean? Quick interruption, everybody. So as you know, I've got my summer retreat last weekend of June. I've now only got 2 spots left. So if you'd love to spend 3 days with me and some beautiful fellow like-minded, freedom-loving, funny, interesting people, come and join us. It's going to be packed full of events. It's going to be full of fun, love, healing, Doc Malik magic. All right, folks, visit my website, docmalik.com/retreats, and book your last 2 spots there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. And what you're saying about the globalists, it's like, I try to get some of my friends who stayed around Pennsylvania, but different areas, to just kind of see this. And sometimes they just think I'm crazy because I'll put it in a global perspective. So now that, let's talk about our 2 sides of the pond. And what you said about the globalist jumping from country to country, they play in segments that are 50, 100, 200 years long.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting book. I think I've told you. I have a good friend and mentor who's a Navy admiral. He's also a physician. I've known him since 2008, and he used to just drop little nuggets to me that sounded crazy about what's really going on in the world. And by 2018, I just sat him down. I said, listen, I know that you're not crazy. I know that you're a very intelligent, erudite man. So you could commission me right now. as a chief warrant officer. My business at the time was on the verge of bankruptcy. I said, I can't go kick down doors and be an operator. That's what your trained badasses are for. I said, but I could do something. I could investigate and read and research. And he said, no, make your business successful. But what I'll do is I'll train you like I do my other flag officers. And he gave me a long list of books to read. One of them was called The 100-Year Marathon by Michael Pillsbury. So this is a plan cracked by one of Mao Zedong's generals in the 1950s to take over the United States as the lone global hegemon in 100 years. So when you think about the globalists jumping, let's go back a little further and think of where the three obelisks are. The Osiris Penis obelisk. You got City of London, Vatican City, and Washington, D.C. Why? You want to go deep into the woo, this unknown stuff. And another one of the books on the reading list comes up called The Rise of the Fourth Reich, because it reveals in very great detail the true Operation Paperclip, where maybe the Nazis, the German army surrendered, but the Nazis did not surrender the Second World War. Where did they go? Yeah, some went to Argentina, some went to Antarctica. A lot of them came to the United States. And the United States was set up as the globalist military control arm. Fact is, the United States is going to have a lot to atone for, and I believe that we will, because with 750 military bases in 150 countries, that's quite an empire. And what does that empire control? The flow of energy and resources, and to guarantee that the flow of that energy, primarily oil, is always done and only done in the fiat fake Federal Reserve note. You want to buy oil from the Saudis? You got to buy dollars. You take your currency? Wait, we're the globalists. We'll decide what the exchange rate is, and you're screwed. You want to rise up and say, hey, you know what? We're going to come up in our country here in the Middle East. We're going to develop a gold-backed currency, and we're going to have trade separate from this dollar-based petroleum system. Well, then what happens? You send in the big bully to go beat the shit out of it. And that's what happened in Iraq, Syria. It's what happened in Afghanistan. And you and I have talked about this because it's like...
Libya?
Yeah, Libya. Oh, Gaddafi, come on. But the Afghanistan one just blew me away because no Americans know, or very few, nobody in my circle understood what the Tapi pipeline was. Remember, you even said, Robert, I'm surprised you knew about the Tapi pipeline. Well, Turkey, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline. Because when you tell the globalists, hey, we're going to go build some infrastructure here, and we're going to start getting some of this oil out of these countries and into ports in India and start shipping it and selling it. Well, what did the U.S. do? You have some assholes in the Pentagon at the behest of their globalist bankster masters who said, well, fuck, let's have these terrorists, let's have these so-called Saudi terrorists, let's stage this attack on the World Trade Center, which you and I know it was Detonation Court that took the towers down, right? 7D holograms. You can look up on YouTube right now, what is a 7D hologram, and do they really have the technology to pull that off? Yeah, they do. So you blow the fuck out of the towers, right? And then say, oh, it's these Saudi terrorists, but it's Taliban, so let's go invade Afghanistan. What was the largest segment of the Tapi pipeline? It was in Afghanistan, which basically had no military to defend it. And the U.S. went in there, took it right. Nope. So the globalists showed them with their military bully, hey, no, you're not going to get involved in energy production whatsoever. And this goes back to the Brit royals, the Dutch royals, the Norwegians, because what did they do with the Nord Stream pipeline? That was infrastructure that they told Russia to build. Russia just said, hey, we don't want to bomb anybody. We just want to participate in the global economy, and we've got a shitload of resources we can sell to Europe. Okay. Russia, go ahead. Spend a few $1 billion, build this pipeline, and you'll be able to sell some of your oil and gas through that pipeline. Okay. And then they go blow it up, giving Russia a big middle finger to the face. Yeah, sorry, sucker. No wonder they're pissed, right? So it's like, yeah, the globalist plan with China, according to Michael Pillsbury in his book, was say, well, these Yankees, these Americans, yeah, we've pretty much sucked everything we can out of them, and we've preserved a lot of their natural resources, because we're exploiting every other country. So what we'll do is we'll impoverish and make America the greatest welfare state there ever is. We'll come in with, British petroleum, Dutch shell oil. We'll come in and we'll extract all that oil that they got, the Bakken oil preserve is real, all that shit out of Alaska, the coal, all the stuff that our henchmen like Al Gore have said, no, don't touch American resources. We'll go in and extract all that stuff when America is now this welfare state on drugs after we depopulate them. And we like communism better. Communism works for us because you have your tiny little Politburo that controls the whole proletariat. And we've already got that set up in China. We set up the Chinese communists, and we have stolen all this American and Western technology to build China's military. China has a whole bunch of ships now, so they can challenge the U.S. Navy, which regulates global commerce. So their plan was to shift control from one lone global hegemon, the United States, over to China. And China wanted it anyway. Like, that makes a good partner because China realizes, holy shit, we got a bunch of people to feed. We industrialize our country without any controls on the environment whatsoever. So we've polluted what little agricultural land we have. They don't have good protein sources in China. So that's why you find the wet markets where they eat like bat and pangolin and snake, because they don't have the beef, right? So China's idea was, well, let's go Operation Farm North America. And at the end of the book, Pillsbury writes, China's plan would culminate in the release of low-level biologic warfare, in a virus, a vaccine, or both. And what if the goal, say what if, because maybe I know, maybe I don't, the goal was to have 75% of America dead or dying by July of 2021. And then the Chinese could easily come in, especially if somebody else was president, not Trump. Chinese could easily come in. They come in because dirty bombs go off in Portland or Seattle and say, oh, this is United Nations. So you got a bunch of, Asian guys with blue helmets. So, it's United Nations. We're going to come in. We already got the protocol. We have 4 FEMA zones in the United States. We've already got the camps. And after this attack, everybody's got to get into the camps because, we got this bioweapon now. And then there's China farming North America. So their plan was thwarted. And this is why I have some belief still. Their plan was thwarted. And yes, we do have Trump in office his second term. I think it will be revealed hopefully sometime this year, because there's another thing on the list that we don't have yet. It will be revealed that operatives at the behest of China and globalist bankers stole the 2020 election by manipulating the Dominion machines, which is something they've done in several countries. That will be elucidated, or I'm going to be called crazy. I'm going to be called crazy. But until that happens, long story going back to, okay, I'm on the right because I'm definitely not the left, but I'm not the blind right. I'm going to hold everybody that we voted for in this administration to the fire, which they should expect, and say, you have to deliver on this. You got to expose the elections, the corrupt politicians, expose mRNA, arrest Fauci. Let's get the Epstein list of the simplest things. Let's get that blackmail list out there. Let's find out how many members of Congress are on that list. And come on, let's go on, and let's stop shipping weapons to Israel. And you know why I just mentioned that? Look at the power outages in Europe right now. Spain mysteriously canceled an arms sale to Israel, probably orchestrated by the deep state in the U.S., orchestrated by the corporations, Raytheon and Lockheed, to sell all of their shit to eventually get it to Israel, maybe Ukraine. But Spain said, no, we're not doing it. Well, Spain and Portugal are now without power. Do you think that was a lesson? Hey, don't mess with us. Don't mess with us.
So, listen, I'm on board with so much of that. I'll come back to China first. It's very interesting. Kissinger went over there, and I'm not sure. I think he might have gone there as a private citizen, not an official. I think the first thing was as a private individual, and they broke a deal. They broke a deal with China, who was on its knees, very poor, and the deal was, we'll make you filthy rich. But you're going to now be our bitch. It's as simple as that. And China is as communist as the Federal Reserve is federal and a reserve. It's not communist. Dude, the Communist Party in China is just a name only. It's communitarianism. It's technocracy. You have technocrats running communitarianism, running this weird hybrid corporate capitalist fascist, socialist system, but it's not. It's not communism. It's a hybrid, and I think they pumped up China. They pumped up China at the expense of America. And China's role was you get to develop yourself and become this big, massive power, but you're now going to be our little, you're now our teacher's pet. And I think that's what's happened. Now, I don't, however, believe that Trump is one of the good guys, mate. He just need to look at who he's put around him, what he says, who he's surrounded by. And he's the father of the vaccine. At the end of the day, he's the father of warp speed. And now they're talking about bombing Iran, and talking about building a Riviera in Gaza. I mean, what? He's tight with Netanyahu. Netanyahu and him are on the same page on everything, and it's like, right. And it's funny. I saw a meme, and it was like, presidents change superficially, but they all go and do the same thing. They all go to Israel. They all go to the Wailing Wall. They all serve that Zionist regime out there. And I don't think it is America first. I think that's the biggest con that they've played. That's what I think anyway.
If it is the biggest,
I'd like to be wrong. I'd like to be wrong.
Well, here's the thing I'll say. You might be right. I hope you're wrong. And I don't want to suck on the hopium pipe and say, nah, it's all going to be okay. I want to be vigilant, right? I don't want to be the blind right, because yeah, you go to that Wailing Wall, which I just learned yesterday. I'll send you a video on your WhatsApp, because that asshole traitor Rand Paul went to the Wailing Wall, because that's what U.S. politicians do when you show your obeisance to Israel. You go to the Wailing Wall, you put on the yarmulke, and Rand Paul, basically in symbolic sacrifice of his first son, took his kid with him. Like, if that guy was standing in front of my face right now, rip him an asshole. Just let him know that I know. No threats. No threats on him. Don't want to do that. Can't do that. But just let him know that I know, and I'll inform other people, because maybe you'll have some Americans, or some of your listeners will, share this with other Americans. Say, did you realize what an asshole traitor Rand Paul is? At the Wailing Wall, in this video, showing his capitulation to Israel, which I learned in the video from an Orthodox Christian priest who calls this out without fear, who calls out all these corrupt politicians who do this shit without fear. Trump did the same. Trump did it too. And here's the thing about that Wailing Wall. It's not a big stone that's a remnant of the Second Temple. No, it's not. It's a remnant of a Roman fortress. Now we go back to I don't think the Roman Empire ever really fell. I think the Roman Empire just spread and infected everyone else. Because, we can get into a whole nother episode to talk about the not so holy Roman Catholic Church, right? And the death of the Pope. But back to Trump. Questions I have, and I realize that it's on thin ice here. This is a very thin thread. So, well, if Trump hadn't pushed out the vaccines, which he said they could choose whether or not to do it. He said vaccines. If Trump hadn't pushed out the vaccines, and America would go into severe lockdowns, because remember, pushing out the vaccines prevented the lockdowns, I think. If America went into severe lockdown, what kind of country would we have today? What if the lockdown was a year or 2 years? We would have complete economic devastation and people so beaten, berated, they have to take every shot that they can just to keep up on, we're going to give everybody universal basic income and some social assistance, but you can only get your check if you get your next shot, right? So was it a calculation in a time of war? Well, which way ends up with the least loss of life? I don't know, but that's another thing. The shit is still on the market, though. Now he's in office. Now he's got RFK Jr. Is make America healthy again just a bunch of empty rhetoric? Okay, great. We're going to get petroleum dyes out of foods. But you've always had the choice whether or not to eat those damn dyes. But you don't have a choice to breathe the air that they're still dumping the chemtrails on. So if there's a task force that's put in place and then it is discovered, what are the companies that own the chemtrail planes? Why are they doing it? Who's financing it? Expose them all. You have to doge all of that. And doge is happening, right? So you've got, two sides of this here. You've still got a lot of that shit, that cow shit and hay that you have to chisel out and remove. That deep state is so deep. I mean, we just had news over here in the United States. 2 or 3 top Pentagon officials now have been ousted because they've made, including the commander of the base in Pacific Greenland. We will not comply with anything the Trump's agenda. That's the head of the U.S. military. And you're just telling that's disobedient to the commander in chief if it was a wartime. You can't do that shit, right? So I'm like, well, if they're chiseling away all this garbage, I'll wait. But right now, I want to hold them to the fire because that list that you and I went over, say, you know what? Yeah, you've got all these reasons to say, yeah, he's a bad dude. Is he? But is Trump's claim saying Gaza, say, yeah, we'll just take it and develop it as America? Well, what does that do? Did that piss off Netanyahu? Because then Trump's saying, well, we'll take it. We're going to put an American military base there. We're going to put a Navy. We're going to put a bunch of Navy there. Israel, you're going to stop bombing the shit out of this place. We're going to develop it. We're going to let the Gazans run the ports. I mean, ports make money, right? We're going to you're not just going to go take it. We're going to go develop it. Now, okay, is that what's going to happen? I don't know, because I have other questions too. Let's go deep. Is he a good guy? Is he not? Who in the hell is his daughter married to? One of the most deep state corrupt Shabbat Lebovich dudes that there is. Netanyahu would stay at the Kushner house in New York. And Ivanka is married to Jared Kushner. So it's like, well...
Wasn't his dad pardoned? Wasn't Jared Kushner's dad pardoned? Why would he need pardoning? What did he do that was so bad?
Criminal shit, obviously, but it's like, well, that's really close ties. And then I think this too, I want to start reading some books, whether they're fiction or not, about how double agents operate. Could you imagine, one, if you're a spy, that's one thing. But what if you're a double agent? What if you got to skate the line between two countries or two factions?
Oh, hold on one second. Can I quickly read something?
Go ahead.
So, the Kushner, oh, geez, Louise. So, right, they own 10,000 residential apartments, businesses and industrial properties and a community bank. On June 30th, 2004, Kushner was fined $500,000 by the Federal Election Commission for contributing to Democratic political campaigns in the names of his partnerships when he lacked authorization to do so. In 2005, following an investigation by a United States attorney, he negotiated a plea agreement under which he pleaded guilty to 18 counts of illegal campaign contributions, tax evasion, and witness tampering.
There you go.
Kushner, being a really nice guy, also hired a prostitute to seduce his brother-in-law, arranging to record a sexual encounter between the two and then send the tape to his sister. Lovely family we got going on here. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and served 14 months at federal prison camp Montgomery in Alabama. As a convicted felon, Charles Kushner was also disbarred and prohibited from practicing law in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. And Chris Christie said Kushner committed one of the most loathsome, disgusting crimes he prosecuted. On 23rd of December 2020, President Trump issued a full and unconditional pardon to Kushner, his daughter's father-in-law, citing his record of reform and charity. Nothing to see there. Nothing to see there. And God, he's quite rich. After being released from prison, he shifted his business activities from New Jersey to New York, and he bought a property for $1.8 billion. Holy moly. His family's worth $1.8 billion. And now I think isn't he, U.S. ambassador to France? I think he is.
That. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So it's like, I mean, I totally see your point. It's like that's Ivanka's father-in-law.
Nice guy.
But I've heard people say stuff, and I'll like file things away in my brain. And what I don't want to do is cram it all into one particular mode and say, no, it's okay because this is the way it is. And I don't know. I just file things away, and I'm going to throw some things at you to think of, because things are often given to me as what ifs. What if? What if? What if? Like I said, Trump pushed out the vaccine because the loss of life without it, due to complete shutdown of America, would have been greater. Is that possible? What if? We know that this is a war of infiltration. I know it's a reach, dude. And I'm not trying to reach to frame it in my mind. I'm like, okay, it's just possible. Whether you call them the Cabal, the Khazarian Mafia, the Canaanites, it's all the same fucking group of twisted individuals, right?
I still haven't got my head around it. I still don't understand who these people are. I'll be honest with you. I hear so many different things from so many different people. It's the bloodlines. It's the 13 dark nobility families. It's the Council of 300, Committee of 300. It's like, I have lost track. I just don't know who the hell is running the show. I just don't know.
Well, I'll send you an article from Veterans Today. It was published in the U.S. a few years ago, and it was the evil history, or the history of the supremely evil Khazarian Mafia, known as the Name Stealers. They're the greatest infiltrators. So you imagine, during the times of Marco Polo, traveling the Silk Road, walking between countries, and you come up on these, people in Khazaria. They know who you are. They know what your business is. They find out as much as they can about you. Get you drunk, give you a great meal, give you a bed, you sleep in it, they kill you, and then somebody assumes your identity. Now you're that guy that's trading along the Silk Road. Infiltration and replacement. That's how they work. So, but infiltration, as I have been told, works two different ways. Because if there is a takedown of this deep state globalist Canaanite Khazarian cabal of banksters, okay, I know I put a lot of them on the table right there, but that frames at least a big number of them. If there is a takedown that is going on, you've got to have infiltration into their organization, which is what they do to us. And can you imagine good, principled people that agree to do the things that need to be done that these evil fuckers do in order to be initiated? Because they'll do things that's so sinister, and it involves blood ritual, sacrifice, and children. They do things that are so sinister so that the rest of their cabal brethren go, okay, well, if you did that sinister shit, you must be one of us. Like the movie Eastern Promises with Viggo Mortensen.
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, I want you to see that. I want you to think about a double agent, and I want you to think about infiltration and how infiltration works two ways. I want you to go see that movie, and I want you to realize the things that he had to do to basically become a Russian gangster and get the prized star tattoos here on his chest. Such a deep infiltrator that at the end of the movie, his good guy handlers, wanted to pull him out, but he said, do you really want to pull me out? I'm deeper in than ever. Look at this. And he's got these tattoos. But that's a guy on the good side. But what he had to do in order to achieve the ultimate objective was to get that close to the leaders is something that I wonder how many people in our own military and intelligence agencies have had to do the same. What has been said to me by my friend is he says, he said this one time. He'll drop these little nuggets, and then I have to go and research. He said, I hope one day the world finds out.
My final interruption, I promise. Folks, it's my 50th birthday this year in the summer, and I want to celebrate with style. And I've organized an event where my supporters, my listeners, can come and join me and have a banquet, a feast, and celebrate in, truly remarkable style. You'll be surrounded by beautiful people, your freedom-loving tribe. It's going to be a magical Saturday afternoon, the 13th of September in central London at an absolutely gorgeous venue that I've organized. It is a non-profit event. To be honest, it's actually money losing, because the ticket per head is actually £105 per head. I didn't calculate and do my math properly. I did say I'm a rubbish businessman, but the ticket's £100. Now, 2/3 of the tickets have already gone. I did release it to my paid subscribers first, That ends on Monday. Let's just check again. God, I should really know this, shouldn't I? Monday the 26th. Monday the 26th will be a general release. So look out for the link. It'll be on my website, docmalik.com/events. Right now, that link is private for my paid Substack subscribers only. So folks, if you're interested, keep an eye out for that. If you're one of my paid subscribers, go back to my Substack. You'll find the link. And I can't wait to see you in September. I love you all so much. Okay, folks, back to the show. Final interruption, I promise.
The sacrifice and what the men of the Black Robes Regiment had to go through
What's the Black Robes
Dude, regiment? I still don't know. I can only guess that it is a deep group of devout men that have decided we're going to do whatever needs to be done to defeat the evil, even if we have to do sinister things ourselves, because it's for the ultimate goal. And that's one thing he said to me. And so I wonder sometimes. I also wonder this, about the current moves that are being made, right? Does Trump and his administration have so much crud to remove before they can actually get this? If we have some major things that occur between now and the end of the year, bless you.
Thank you.
Salud. If we have some major things that occur between now and pick any one of them. Chemtrails are stopped, mRNA is removed, China involved in an active war of election theft in the United States at the behest of their globalist bankers, masters. If any of that is revealed between now and the end of the year, okay, maybe we're going to start to turn the tide. But if it's not, here's where we're headed in America. We're headed towards central bank digital currency, complete technocratic feudalism, right? I mean, Maha is nothing but empty rhetoric so far, right? Yeah, we're going to examine the pediatric vaccination schedule. Okay, examine. I would think there'd be much more harsh statements made than that, but what is the reality? And what the hell? Israel is still allowed to bomb with impunity. And then my next question is, well, you saw 3 massive explosions occurred in Iran recently.
Did we?
Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
It's on some people's posts, X, whatever. 3 massive explosions in Iran that set off NASA detectors. Why would they set off NASA detectors and it wasn't a military alert? Because NASA satellite detectors are designed to pick up temperature changes of the surface, of the ground surface. Now, obviously, if it's a conventional bomb or a low yield or even a high yield nuke, that'd be very obvious. There'd be extremely high temperature right above the surface, an air blast, a blast on the surface, whatever. But this was something that occurred underground, an explosion that occurred underground. And Iran has before bragged about their nuclear cities. We have deep underground cities that are building missile cities, they're called. And what all they needed was the fissile material that Hillary Clinton sold to them. She sold to them the whole Uranium One deal, right? She worked out with Russia.
I thought they said they're never going to build a nuclear weapon. This whole idea that they're pushing to build a nuclear weapon is a complete lie.
Come on, they said. They said. I don't know. Recently they did something smart. Iran did something smart. Hey, tell you what. We won't build a nuclear weapon. If you clear the rest of the Middle East of nuclear weapons, we won't build ours. We will agree to that. A no-nuke Middle East. One of the things that John F. Kennedy wanted among the list that got him killed was he did not want to sell nuclear weapons to Israel. He did want the American Zionist Council, which is the predecessor to AIPAC, American Israeli Political Action Committee, he did want them to register under the FARA Act, or Foreign Registry Agent. He also ordered the purchase of 43,000 tons of gold to stick the U.S. back on a gold standard. And what pissed him off and why he made his speech about taking the CIA, which was basically the Nazis, taking the CIA, breaking it into 1,000 pieces and scattering it to the wind, was because CIA met with him and said, hey, boss, we have to go to war in Vietnam. He's like, the fuck for? You don't have the security clearance for that. What? I'm the president of the United States. Now, it's national security, but we can't tell you we have to go to war in Vietnam. And he didn't want that war.
And war against Cuba as well.
Yeah.
The Bay of Pigs and whatnot.
Yeah. So
they're forcing his hand.
He didn't want any of that. And they showed him. They showed him what they would do and show any future president, because I think Reagan came into office with good intentions too. And Reagan said, no, you're not going to fuck American industry. We're going to keep America a steel producer. So he delayed their plan. Reagan didn't say, well, I'm not going to prohibit countries like Japan. Their steel industry was booming at the time. Countries like Japan and Spain to sell steel in the United States. But what I am going to do, and I'm not going to set prices or tariffs. What I am going to do is I'm going to limit the tonnage. Hey, Japan, hey, Spain, you're only allowed to ship to the United States this much tonnage per year. Import quotas. That kept our American steel industry alive. And my dad was the reddest voting steel mill worker you've ever said, because he was a thinker. He said, because of that move by Reagan, I got another 10 years. I made it to retirement because of Reagan. Now he did retire in 2001. But he said, because of 2 terms of Reagan, he made it to his retirement. But his best years, he worked as a laborer. He did this math. He said, hey, I have to retire. I said, when? He said, next week. He said, because what they do is they take the last 10 years that I worked, and they look at the best 6 out of 10, how much money I made. And he had a regular wage and profit sharing check. So there were 6 straight years that his profit sharing check was equal to whatever he made with his hourly wage. It was equal. He said it was like double income. He said, if I work one more year, those 6 years are long behind me. They're behind me in the Reagan years. If I work one more year, I'm going to lose one of those 6 years. It brings my average down, because what they do is they average the best 6 years out of the last 10 and give you 80% of that as a pension. He said, I have to retire right now, or I lose one of those years if I work another 2 weeks. I'm done. And he took all of his pension out, because the steel mill was bought by a large corporation, but he took his pension out because that's what corporate marauders were doing at the time. Oh, we're going to buy this steel mill. We're going to develop this. No, you're going to ship all the equipment to Mexico, and you're going to plunder the pension fund, because the taxpayer funds the pension guarantee fund. Oh, sorry, your pension is shit now, but at least you've got the government guarantor. Do you think the government's guarantee of the pension benefits was nearly as much as the value of No, it was a fraction. So you have other workers like my dad who said, you're crazy. You're going to take a penalty for taking your pension out. He says, yeah, but you know what? I'm going to put it in stuff that's secure. And it was the wisest move he made. As a laborer, he did well. And we had a 35-acre farm with 2 buildings and a house, 2 little sheds, and it just worked, right? Probably very similar to how life was in your area of Scotland when industry was booming. So, those things, there's a lot to think about. But, like you and I talked, long segue. Is Trump a bad guy? I hope not. But there's a lot of things you can list and say, look who he's aligned with. Look at this stuff that's not getting done. I mean, maybe this isn't what we voted for. But then again, it's like, well, infiltration works 2 ways. How would a double agent function? The tariffs and the rebuilding of American industry, that's something I can support and get behind. What's going to happen over the next 6 months? We'll see. We're going to know this. Here's a masterstroke, I think, may be coming. Now, living in a state with known super corrupt elections, I mean, it's a joke here in Nevada, a complete joke about our local elections here, our commissioners, our local politicians. It's a complete joke. And I can go into another time how it's all eventually controlled by NGOs. Our state legislators don't write a single law. They don't write a single bill. There's something called the Legislative Council Bureau, which is active in every state. They have different names, not Legislative Council Bureau, Legislative Council Board, different names. And it's basically Soros-funded lawyers, 1,200 lawyers that write all of the legislation that goes into effect in each different state. And our politicians don't write any of it. They don't read the bills. They're enjoying their drunken parties and all kinds of crazy shit, except for maybe a few principled guys that get kicked out. That's what's going on. And this state here is a prized state to capture because Nevada's mineral wealth, Nevada's in-ground mineral wealth is so extraordinary that if you were to rank Nevada as a country based on its mineral wealth. If Nevada was a country, it would rank 4th in the world.
Wow.
But not 95% of the state land in Nevada is controlled by the federal government. We call it Bureau of Land Management. So if Trump releases and unleashes American industry, which I think is happening, okay, that's going to be a good thing. But the rest of this long play here, well, let's just face it. If Trump and the MAGA cohort don't rescue America, the rest of the world is fucked. Because once America rights its ship, we have to go as America and go atone for all the other countries that have had their elections stolen by these rigged, fake Dominion, Venezuelan controlled machines that are run by the bankers and the communists. Chinese intelligence officers will be discovered sitting aside Canadian technicians and Serbian and Italian technicians flipping the votes in 2020. I hope that's discovered, or I'm going to sound just crazy. And if that is discovered, then hey, that's a big deal, because that is akin to a Pearl Harbor attack. It's not a conventional warfare. It's unconventional, 5th generation warfare. Stealing elections is like a decapitation event. That's like assassinating the Archduke of Franz Ferdinand. That set off the powder keg of World War I Europe. They took out the Archduke. Well, when you take out the lawfully, willfully elected leadership that the civilians chose, that's the same thing. That's an act of war. So what's going to happen?
Oh, dude.
I don't know.
Dude, all of this sounds so far-fetched and crazy. It's unbelievable. And but who knows, man? The world is just so mad. It's unbelievable. But the problem is, like, even if there are people rigging the elections, like, it's not a country. That's the problem. These are nameless, faceless, countryless people. That's like, who do you wage war against? I think that's the difficulty. Do you know one thing I also wanted to really talk about, but I don't think we've got time now. We have to do a different podcast for that. I really wanted to pick your brains about your life as a pharmacist and why you're disgusted with Big Pharma. And remember when I met you, you were really into prescribing, like how to get people off drugs. Can we do that another day?
We can do that another day. I can give you a 3-minute summary of it, and we can expand on it.
Yeah, let's do that. Do the taster now, and let's do a podcast
here's the taster.
On it later. Yeah.
I was conditioned growing up on the farm in Pennsylvania. My dad said, "You're not going to go be a steel mill worker. This steel mill will eventually be gone. You got to go to college." And my older siblings, 11 and 14 years older than me, flunked out of college. You're going to make it through college. That was ingrained in my brain. There was a good pharmacy school in Pittsburgh, and he says, "Look, pharmacist, high starting salary. You can come right out with a degree. You're going to get into that school." And I did. I got out of school, was starting to make my paycheck, felt proud. I'm like, I made far more money than any of the steel mill guys were making. But after 2 weeks, I'm like, this is bullshit. Everybody come into the pharmacy. If you're 30 years old, you're getting 1 or 2 medications, right? If you're 40, you're getting 3. If you're 50, you're getting 4 or 5. If you're 60, you're getting 7. If you're 80, you're spending your whole day sifting through your pills. I'm like, no. The human body is not designed to fall apart like this and live on these shitty medications. And it was about that time that I said, you know what? Gosh, what did I go get the degree for? I'm either going to go back to school, go to medical school, or move west and try to get in the drug industry because Las Vegas population was growing. And I did work a sales job. I moved west, worked chain drugstore for a while. I did work sales. It was a good lifestyle, Tuesday through Thursday, 10 to 2. We call it the 5T work week. But then I got into clinical trials. Like, we don't use PharmDs for sales. You run clinical trials. I thought that was a pure pursuit until really I realized that you can influence the outcome of trials, or at least editorials in major medical journals, by somebody from a different department, not the medical department where I was as a medical liaison, but somebody from the commercial department comes in and says to an investigator at a top-tier California university, "Hey, we saw that preprint of the editorial you're going to write about our drug in a trial. And it really dogs us, man. How about this? We'll sign you up, and you'll do 3 different talks for us, and we're going to pay you $60,000. In fact, you're going to guarantee us these 3 talks, which we may cancel, but you'll agree to do them if we actually have them scheduled. And I'm going to give you $60,000 check right now." And they did. And we're going to give the university $600,000. That's how it all works. And
Are you serious?
The tone of the editorial, which was correct. This drug suppresses the virus, but the side effects are hell. It's never going to make it to market because people are dropping out of the trial due to the side effects. They can't tolerate 48 weeks worth of therapy to cure their hep C. Forget it. That was correct. That's exactly how the trial turned out. But the company didn't want to release that information because it would depress the stock price. So a compounding pharmacy came up for sale. I bought it. I started researching hormone replacement therapy, nutritional medicine, and I got a handbook called Drug-Induced Nutrient Depletion. Every drug has a nutritional cost. I mean, statin drugs deplete CoQ10. CoQ10 depletion is incompatible with life because the most dense concentration of CoQ10 is right here in the myocardium. And I realized maybe we don't need all the drugs. Maybe I could do everything that I would want to do if I was practicing medicine with a handful of drugs. 10, 20, 30 drugs are useful. All these other things are just killing people. And that's the teaser. And I got into the compounding pharmacy business. It has gone well. I have a naturopathic doctor on staff who is also a pharmacist. And we don't see patients at the pharmacy, but we have a lot of like-minded practitioners that we've actually put on our own seminars for. Hey, if you're a doctor and you want to break away from this complete allopathic prescribing only model, if you're tired of being an expensive box checker, which is what I call standard primary care doctors in America today, because it's a 7.6 minute average office visit. It's enough time for the doctors to tell you, you have time to tell me about one problem, I can prescribe up to 2 meds, and here's how they interact with you during the visit. There's no hands-on. There's no stethoscope checking for bowel sounds, borborygmi. It's this. Typing on the computer because they're in the electronic health record. Okay, yeah, this symptom, check, click, this symptom. Okay, your diagnosis code is this. The company-approved treatment plan is this. Which pharmacy do you use? Oh, okay, I'm going to send the scripts there. Okay, thank you very much, I'm done. It's nothing but a model to drive over-prescribing, dependence, and drug utilization. It's not health, and I'm very passionate about turning that all around. So there's your... It was 4 minutes, sorry. I said I would do it in 3. But there's the teaser.
Do we need to do that podcast? That's going to be a cracker.
We'll do that next.
We need to do that one. Yeah, we'll definitely do that next. All right, listen. I think we're coming to an end now. I love you loads. But listen,
love you, brother.
This is it's been quite deep. It's quite deep. And, I think we can agree to disagree on things. And that's the nice thing, that we can do that and still be friends, you still have faith in Trump. I've given up on him. I really have, mate. But that's fine. I want to be wrong. Let's see what happens.
I wouldn't necessarily call it faith. That's a little bit too much of a stretch for me. I'm just not in the absolute camp just yet that he is the enemy and we've just been duped by the globalists to put the wrong guy in place. But the honest truth is this. If you stack up the most visible evidence right now to weight it today, yeah, he's on the side of the globalists. I just hope not, and I try my best to not be the blind right. And what I want to do is revisit this exact line of thinking and discussion around December.
So another thing as well is, Bobby Kennedy, I'm just so disappointed with him. When he's talking about food color dyes and fluoride, and I'm like, just stop the goddamn vaccines. Repeal the PrEP Act. Stop the immunity to the vaccine manufacturers. Why don't you do that? And then he goes on about how we need to tackle anti-Semitism. You're the health secretary.
So
you're the health secretary. What the hell's that got to do with anything?
I saw that. That was his capitulation move. That was his time at the Wailing Wall. I mean, come on, man. I'm telling you, voters like me are only going to hold out with a little bit of hope, only so much longer, or there will be a massive revolt.
But you understand what I mean, don't you?
I understand exactly what you mean. That was ridiculous. When he said that, that was just ridiculous. What? No, we need to get fluoride out of the water. It's one of the things on the list. We still have fluoride in the water. We still have chemtrails. We still have the mRNA vaccines on the market. We still have the American Academy of Pediatrics vaccination schedule. We still have thimerosal in vaccines. Come on. Do something.
Do you ever get worried that you might get accused of being anti-Semitic with some of the things you say?
I'm sure. Do I get worried? Well, am I concerned that I will be declared that? Yeah, for sure. But you know what? Sometimes I reach a point, and I have reached that point where I don't give a fuck. And you're going to see men in this country, I hope, if they've got the testosterone and the cojones for it, step up and say, I just don't give a fuck anymore. There are people right now rumored to be...
Because it's just name calling at the end of the day.
It's just name calling. But when you get, especially older guys, more senior guys like Vietnam veteran age guys who just say, you know what, I don't give a shit anymore. And I'm going to go find who those chemtrail pilots are. And I'm going to go, let's just say, have an interaction with them. I don't think that interaction will be pleasant because they're just sick of the shit. And there are rumors of people on the dark web going right now saying, you know what, all we got to do is start doxing and exposing the names of these chemtrail pilots if we want to get chemtrails out of the air. So either this administration is going to do it, or we're going to take matters into our own hands because these guys have reached to the point where they just don't give a shit. They don't give... And they're going to do what's needed.
Great. Listen, you know what? It's really funny. Like, normally after every podcast episode, I've got a rough idea what I'm going to call the title of the podcast. I have no idea what I'm going to call this podcast. I don't know. I just don't know. I'll think about it. But listen, my final question of the day, my friend, is very simple. You're on your deathbed. You're surrounded by your loved ones, your beautiful children, your wife. Before you pass on and meet your maker, what final words of wisdom and advice will you give to them?
It's a good question. That's a deep question. And the best answer is probably the simplest answer. And I would say, you know, I hope that I have shared love and wisdom with you. And I hope that you do that for others. Find fulfillment in your life, not with achievement, but you know, with external achievement. Find it in the fulfillment of resonating, loving others, and continuing that. Pay it forward, which I hope I've done in a small way. And there's probably some variation of that I would say. You know, the most precious commodity any of us have is time.
Amen to that. And now I'm going to go and put my kids to bed and give them a cuddle. It's one of the most important times of the day for me. I love doing that.
Always make sure, I tell my sons this, hey, I give them a hug every day I leave the house. You know, they're homeschooled. I say, I always want to make sure you have enough. So at the end of your life, if I said to you, did you get enough hugs? Did you get enough times that I said, I love you? Even my dogs. Hey, you know, there's going to be a day I don't have them and I gotta put them asleep and see. Did you get enough frisbee time? That's their favorite thing, is to throw the frisbee. Did you get enough? Did you get enough pets? And if they're thinking, I got ripped off, you were kind of cheap, I have failed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, 100%.
Go do those cuddles, man.
I learned something recently, like before the age of 7, that's when major trauma occurs in kids. And then you carry it on as an adult and it triggers you and causes problems. But there's 3 things, like the sense of abandonment, the sense that you're just not enough, you're not good enough, and rejection. So I started to tell my kids every night, you are good enough. You will never be abandoned or rejected. And you are loved. I just keep saying that to them. You know?
I've told my sons too, you know, you're going to make mistakes. But there's never going to be anything that changes this. I will always love you. And it will always be the maximum amount. There will never be anything that makes me love you less. Nothing that you ever do or say, no matter what. It will always be the maximum amount. Count on it.
I love that. Thanks, buddy.
All right, brother.